think like this one we should do a combine because again we should again Koke is our past. I think like it's pretty much a past, and then Pablo Paris is our future. So talking about these two players, I think like they resemble each other because again Pablo Paris like I think this season had a really, really amazing season. If you just like ignore those red cards in the midst of the season against Bayer Leverkusen and Celta Vigo, just ignore those. And I think Pablo Paris is literally, I think, as people say, el futuro capitano for Atletico de Madrid. And then we have Koke, which again, which is I think like we are overusing him. And but the thing is, when he comes to the field, he kind of like balances things. Like he still has that kind of impact in Atletico de Madrid, like still at the age of 34, 35. Which again, like what do you think about these two guys, Pablo Barrios and Koke? Like should we move on from Koke and like we should like literally put Pablo Barrios and as like the main leader on the pitch?
They're as important as any player on the squad. I would 100% keep them. They represent what Atletico Madrid is about. Koke was almost on his way out when Simeone arrived to the club because he wasn't sure he was going to get any playing time. He turned into a centerpiece for Koke. I mean for Simeone, a cornerstone for his project. He represents Simeone's project, and Pablo Barrios represents the future. So um, I'm, I think they're two players that Atletico need to hold on to them as much time as they can, because they're living history of Atletico Madrid, and they're meant to become historic players. One already is a part of history and one of the most important players in Atletico Madrid history, and the other one is bound to take over at the helm and become the natural leader of the team captain, and the reference alongside maybe Giuliano if he continues to evolve, but definitely Barrios is a cornerstone. Koke still is a contributor, and he understands his role much better than, for example, Griezmann has been able to understand it. I think he's finally figured it out, Griezmann as well. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine with them staying. I couldn't even imagine them moving on. In fact,
What do you think, Jeremy, about the Cook and Pablo Barros situation? I mean, Cook is definitely has this like mentor role going on at the moment, and then Pablo Barros is like emerging as a leader of this team. What do you think about both of these two?
I'll start with Barrios. Ricky told a story on our podcast a few weeks ago about Ricky has a Spanish language podcast called Maneras de Vivir, and you guys talked to one of Barrios' former coaches.
mm-hmm.
And this coach said that he is the most talented Spanish midfielder Atletico have had since Rodri, more talented than Rodri, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes.
Barrios can do everything, and he's 22 years old. It's wonderful that we've signed him to a long-term contract. He is this team's future leader. And with the arrival of Johnny Cardoso, I expect to see Barrios in a more advanced role next season, where I predicted on our show like last week or the week before that Barrios could score 10 goals next season in a more advanced number 8 role. Again, I'm not sure what formation we're going to use, whether it's the 3-5-2 or the 4-4-2, but Barrios can really do a bit of everything. He didn't come up through the ranks as a number 5, as a deep lying like organizer of the team, but he has become that. Other than the red cards, we had those incidents with him. You know, he's been fairly good in that role, but he's even better as a more advanced playmaker. I love the kid. Can't say enough good things about him. Think he's brilliant, and he's only going to get better. Koke, you know, he's closing in on 700 games for this club, guys. 700 appearances for Atletico de Madrid. Incredible. And it blows my mind that some of our own fans don't even understand Koke's value. Koke is going to go down as one of the most underappreciated, underrated midfielders of his generation. Like, no doubt, one of the best Spanish midfielders of the last decade. A player who has been 3 or 4 different players in his career. He has fulfilled
Which
every
reminds me
role.
of Gabi as well.
Yeah.
That
Which reminds me
same
of
thing
Gabi
that
as
you
well.
just
Actually, I
said,
mean,
Jeremy. That same thing that you just said, Jeremy, is something that Xavi Hernandez has said. He thinks
Yes,
Cook is one of the best midfielders of his generation, and he isn't considered as such.
he's not. Partially because of the club he plays for. Let's be real. But Koke is going to go down as an Atletico legend. Obviously, it should go down as one of the best midfielders of his generation. He's fulfilled every role Simeone has asked him to fulfill, in part because there were holes in the squad that he knew that only Koke could fill. So I can't say enough good things about Koke. I think it's great that he's renewed for one more year. He still has a lot to offer in terms of his leadership and in terms of his football, even though he's 33 going on 34, which makes me feel really old. He's got a lot to offer still, whether it's for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. His passing ability, the metronomic quality that his passing has, the tempo setting that he brings, still a very important player for me. Very happy we've renewed him.
For sure, for sure. St. Keeks, what do you think about the Cook and Pablo Barca situation? And meanwhile, you speak, I'm gonna charge my iPad actually. So yeah, please continue.
um, I really like Barrios and Koke. I think both of them. I think it's interesting because Koke has a very different qualities to Barrios. Koke is a lot more technical in terms of how he plays. He's a limited player, but what he does well, he does at a level that I don't think anybody else can really do at his level. And I think the irony is, not to say that you should chase goals and assists, but it's like people talk about Kevin De Bruyne seasons, Cruz seasons, these other things, and you'll see young Koke having something stupid like 5 goals and 15 assists in La Liga alone. You'll see, like these things where it's like anybody else, this is literally a world class player, possibly generational in terms of just like how good he was in La Liga and these other things. Doesn't get his flowers, and it's a shame because he's really been one of those players. He's been hounded by Barcelona for years because he was that good. Like I don't know why they're trying to rewrite the aspects of Koke despite the fact of how good he was. And I think Barrios hopefully gets to that level in terms of being that all-encompassing presence in Atletico, where he can be somebody who can calm down in midfield, but also be a presence in terms of changing the game and these other things like Koke has. He's been very limited this season into Barrios, I should say, in terms of being able to go forward. But when he has been able to go forward, great stuff. Sevilla game, amazing. The Real Valladolid game, amazing. The Club World Cup, the one game that he got to do it, he got 2 goals. Then we didn't get to do it again because we didn't want to do that. But I think I'd love to see what Barrios can do further forward now that we've signed a DM in Johnny Cardoso. I hope it's a similar sort of situation like Kondogbia, where that Kondogbia Barrios duo was just like, oh, it's easy. Kondogbia just defends, he passes the Barrios changes the game. We don't need another midfielder. I hope it's something like that again, where we could just do that and just have a good time next season. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think about this a lot actually. Like in the Club World Cup, I think like if Pablo Barros like wasn't like up to his game, like I don't see Atleti even scoring like one goal at the tournament because the type of tournament our strikers were having. And when you look at those, like Pablo Barros like had an amazing game against Seattle and against PSG as well. I think like the quality like you can see on Pablo Barros and Julian Alvarez is like literally different. And like when other players get the ball, it's different. And when these two players get the ball, like like something might happen. And Atleti needs more these kind of players, and hopefully Johnny Cardoso or Alex Baena will provide that thing. Moving on to the left hand side, I
I
think
oh
like
I
yeah,
wrote
sorry.
on Barrios where I just like I tried to be objective about it, but I just was just like look at how good this guy is, and I just like the entire article.
Yeah, he does everything, man.
What Jeremy was saying about the narrative. I mean, if he was called Paul Neighborhood or whatever,
Paulie neighborhoods.
he would get his due, but he's not. He's called he's a kid that's playing for Atletico, and he's always going to be under that magnifying glass where his mistakes are going to outshine any good things that he does. So yeah, I'm sure that he's not going to get his due, but he's going to be very, very useful for Atletico Madrid, especially because um, the area where there's an immediate upgrade is a midfield, and I think that's going to have an immediate impact. I think that Atletico is still halfway through their signing process. They have to sign. The problem that Atletico has is that they have to sign starters. The three players that they've signed are starters 100%. So they still have to go for three more starters and see and make sure that they fit. And that's a tough call. But I think that all of these players that have been holding the ship together are going to benefit immediately, and this danger that we have, this risk of maybe flaming out Barrios for overplaying him at an age where he shouldn't be that exposed, is going to fade, fortunately.
Hope so.
And like I don't understand some fans actually like I remember like Baris like like when he got that like second red card against Celta Vigo, and like our own fans they were literally like after him, they were like, oh, like like his time is up, whatever, like this kid from Real Madrid academy, whatever, like I mean I can understand like these kind of like stuff, like things can happen, obviously like, you're disappointed, but like again like lashing out on someone, again the kind of a guy Pablo Paris is, I mean, which I think it's really a shame to be honest. But anyway, moving on to the left hand side of Atletico Madrid, an area which really stinks to be honest. It's like literally Atletico Madrid is you can literally call it like a cripple to be honest, like running on one leg, because the left hand side doesn't work at all. And again, we can talk about like the two players we have on that position with Rodrigo Riquelme leaving today, and the next one is Samolino. Again, Samolino has a very very bad season for us. Atletico Madrid. I mean, like it was like much more was expected out of Samolino because the season he had prior to this season as well. Like when you see him against the match, like for example, like when he burst into the scene with Valencia, and then with Atletico as well, with when you see against Real Madrid, that cross to Morata, and him literally running wild on Lucas Vasquez, or sorry, Valverde was in that position that day. And then against Lazio as well, again he had a really good game against Lazio, and then he was just literally having that consistency on the left hand side. I think with the drop of performance in Samolino has really affected us on the left hand side, and then Rodrigo Riquelme couldn't really backed up like that position as well. What do you think about Ricky? These two players. I mean, Rodrigo Riquelme has already left. What do you think, Samolino? Whether we should keep or sell him?
Both players obviously regressed, but I still have faith that Samolino can revert his situation, and it's a one season issue. After having two significantly positive seasons, both at Valencia and Atlético Madrid, um, I would take the limited risk of keeping Samolino and seeing if he can make a comeback, because he's a player that I really like, and I think he can still play good games for Atletico Madrid. I was kind of disappointed that Rodrigo Riquelme didn't pan out, and he just um, flopped more and more as the season went on. Um, with Lino, it does seem to be something that has to do with a temporary loss of form, maybe something that has to do with maybe his self confidence, something that maybe he can work on, because he's been such an outstanding player. I just can't understand why a player fizzles out so drastically. I would really like to give Samulino a last chance to prove his worth.
And then next year we'll talk about this situation as well. And I hope Ricky is not harsh on Samolino. The next year we'll talk about this. But anyway, moving on to the next. Jeremy, what do you think about both of these players? With again, Riquelme is obviously leaving. What do you think about the situation right now?
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah.
I'll start. My bad.
I
start
thought something happened with my internet again. I was like, well, come on, like, not right now.
Sorry. My bad. But yeah, starting with Roro, I'm just disappointed it didn't work out. You always want a kid from the academy, a very talented kid from the academy who we've been hearing about for years. He has these loan moves, a really weird one to Bournemouth that didn't work out. Then he rehabilitates his value at Mirandés, and then he goes to Girona and plays pretty well, merits a spot in Simeone's squad. Just didn't pan out for him, though. That jump in level was a bit too much for him. I think what hurt Riquelme is that he didn't have a fixed position. We talked about this on our show a few weeks ago. The lack of a fixed position, the lack of composure, concentration, anticipation, just those mental and out of possession traits that you have to succeed in a Cholo Simeone coached team. He just didn't really have them. He's going to go to Real Betis. Betis are going to acquire 50% of his rights for around 9 million euros, which Atletico are valuing him then at 18 million euros, which is about right. Betis,
which is a really good sale, actually. Like, I was really surprised, like 18 million for Rodrigo Riquelme at this point. Like, especially the fact that like this season he has like played barely, to be honest. 18 million.
I'm seeing reports saying 9 million, but 50% of his thing.
What's that?
I'm seeing reports saying nine, somewhere between 9 and 10 million for 50% of his rights.
Yeah, it's about right. And I don't know if there's going to be a clause where Betis get to acquire more of his rights in the years ahead, but he's signing a 5-year contract. That's a really good place for him to rediscover form. Manuel Pellegrini is kind of like the winger whisperer. I think he'll play pretty well under Pellegrini. That's a good place for him to land. He gets to play European football next year. So I guess all's well that ends well with Roro. I wish it had worked out for him here, but I wish him the best of luck. With Lino, it's a little bit different. The club has to make money this summer. And if DePaul doesn't leave, I think Lino is the next candidate to leave. I think they will sell him, and I would understand that decision. I probably would too. I guess that's where I'm going to disagree with you guys. Lino regressed so hard this season, and I know there were mitigating factors. The change in formation really hurt him, I think, more than most, because last year in 23-24, he had the full reign of the left flank to himself, and that brought out the best in him. Playing in the 3-5-2 brought out the best in him. Playing in a 4-4-2 with a defensively suspect, shall we say, Javi Galan behind him. He's fighting for minutes with Riquelme and Conor Gallagher, who we're going to talk about. That didn't help him. I think there were confidence issues there, but just watching him on the pitch, the combination play that Cholo Simeone raved about in 23-24, that disappeared. He suffered from Yannick Carrasco's tunnel vision, but he doesn't have Yannick Carrasco's ingenuity to pull it off. So it's tough, but I think they can get 25 to 30 million for him. And I think there are teams in England and France that are interested in him. I would sell, and I would use those funds to go after a player, like an unbalancing player, a dribbling winger who can play on the left and or the right. Cholo tried Giuliano on the left a few times this season. It looked pretty good at the Club World Cup, especially against Botafogo. So I think that could be a consideration for next season, and you bring in another player who can primarily play on the right. But I probably would sell on Lino, sell high. His value is still at a pretty decent level.
For sure. I mean, and then St. Keeks, are you also one of those fanboys who have Rodrigo Riquelme posters or as a wallpaper?
Yeah.
No. I am a big fan of Riquelme, though. I've been a fan of Riquelme for some time now. I was really happy when he debuted for us. I can't remember what season it is now. It's been so long. I think it was 1920, actually. I think it was that long ago. And then I tried to keep up in touch with Riquelme in terms of his time in Bournemouth when he was in the championship. And then I tried to keep up with him in Miranda's. It's really, I'm not going to lie to you, until recently, trying to watch Segunda in Trinidad, very hard to do. And then I also kept up in touch with him in Girona, and I was surprised at his development after Bournemouth, because I think Bournemouth, he was kind of okay. It wasn't particularly impressive. It wasn't really a good loan for him. And then his Miranda's loan was really, really impressive. He played as an attacking midfield. He was just capable of doing a lot. But I think what you saw in Miranda's, what you saw in Girona is not what you could see in Atletico, and we didn't really get to see the best of Riquelme in our system at any point in time, really. I think he had a nice year before this.
Don't forget, like he was the one who gave assist to Julian Alvarez for his first goal.
That is true. Well, technically it's not an assist because of ricochet of a player. But I hear your points. I raise, yes, that is true. Riquelme is a very good player. I think it's very clear that he's talented. He's a little frustrating when it comes to decision making, but he's always been a player I thought at some point he would eventually leave. Even if he was doing well, I thought he would eventually leave. Lino, I think there's a reality where you probably have to sell him, regardless of how I feel about him. I think I would love to keep him. I think having that quality and depth would be perfect for me. Getting that level of form of the previous season, maybe even superseding it, would be fantastic for everybody involved. Is that something that Atletico is willing to bet on right now? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think Lino's going. I think we're probably going to get a 30 million from our Wolves or something like that. Yeah, I want
I don't
Lino to stay.
for some reason, like I haven't seen any Brazilian player in the Atlético Madrid except Felipe Luis working out under Diego Simeone. Like we've seen with Lodi as well. Lodi was again, I think, like the first few seasons, Lodi was really, really good.
I
And
don't know why
then
we went for Lodi. We had a really good left back in our academy from who was Brazilian, who ended up going to Monaco and doing really well. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name.
Kyle Enrique.
Caio Henrique, right?
Oh, yeah.
He would be like until his
Caio
ACL.
Henrique is not an academy player as such. He was one of those purchases like Diego Jota. In fact, Caio
Oh,
Henrique and Diego Jota were training with Simeone the same summer. I saw both of them play in Burgo de Osma. So I've seen them
okay,
play in red and white.
okay.
They were
So,
like
but there you
kind of
go.
those third party ownership type of deals.
Yeah,
that
the
Atletico
Jorge
were a
Mendes
facilitator.
stuff. We're gonna get there. We have Lemar still to talk about, right?
Yeah,
Lemar, yes,
Oh my God.
yes.
but
L-
so
Let's start with sorry, yes, in case you're gone.
Enrique is weird though, because it's like Enrique should have. If you look at what Enrique has done since leaving Atletico, and then you look at what Lodi has
Again.
done.
We will talk about Enrique later on, bro.
And
Like,
Diego Jota. I mean, I would have kept.
Yeah. Strange stuff, strange deals. A very
yeah,
weird club.
Yeah.
we'll talk about Raul Jimenez as well, who was at Atleti at one point. We'll talk about him as well. But anyway, yeah, moving on to since Ricky mentioned, like we have to talk about Lemar as well. I mean, Lemar, like we see his literally a Photoshop picture as Diego Maradona. So what do you think? What do you think, guys? Like what went wrong with Lemar, especially the fact that like he came up with a big fee as well, 70 million for Thomas Lemar. I mean, wow.
I would love to be Jorge Mendes' client, man, because that guy is a wizard.
Yeah.
Whatever time we spend talking about Thomas Lemar is more relevant than his contribution to the team in the last 2 seasons at least. He's just been a phantom player, and he's like the French Vitolo. If you remember Vitolo and his time around, he's just a lump player, that dead money that you cannot get rid of. He's got an extension. I think they chunked up his contract the way they do nowadays. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He's not
For some
moving
reason,
anywhere. I can
for
only
some
see
reason,
alone
yeah,
that
sorry,
Atletico
go
are paying for his for his wages. It may be a Vitolo operation, a Saul operation. By the way, Saul is a squad player as of right now. So that's
We're
an
not
extra.
talking about him. We're not
Yeah, I
talking
hope
about
we're
him.
not. I hope we're not. But I mean, I can say the same things I can say about Lemar that I can say about Saul. I can't recall a single worthy minute of the season. He's played whiles, but he had very I don't know, mediocre contribution, and then he just bust his Achilles tendon, and it seems to be the end of his elite career. And it's just he's just playing it out to see if he can see his contract through, pick up the money. It's just a cash grab right now for Tomas Lemar, and I'm sure that Atletico Madrid want to get rid of him in a polite way. If Simeone has him, he's going to get some playing time, because surprisingly, it's one of the mysteries with Simeone. Lemar always gets playing time with Simeone, something that I cannot understand very well. And that's the situation. I would ask him to go on a loan deal to Getafe or to a team that is nearby where he doesn't have to move and have the comfort of not moving. But seeing his contract out and just take the hit in the money.
True, true. I mean, like since you mentioned Vitolo, actually, for some reason, I remember his 90th minute winner. I forgot the team who it was against, but I remember that winner of Vitolo with his, I think, with his left foot as well.
Yeah, that was against Abar.
I don't know if it was
Started
literally
the
at the
2019-20 season.
Yeah,
sure
there you
that's the
go.
goal.
Yeah, very very good memories I have with Vitolo.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean Thomas Lemar. If you're asking about Thomas Lemar, I think the highlights of him in this club have he bagged that goal against Barcelona with Luis Suarez with that phone celebration, and actually that's it, to be honest. I can't really remember much of Thomas Lemar. Yeah, but what do you think, Jeremy, about Thomas Lemar in this club right now?
Well, I was never a huge fan of this signing. It was a lot of money to pay for 70% of the players' rights, and I think Monaco still are entitled to a percentage of a sale. So it's a great deal from Monaco's POV.
I think
But
it's 30% they own now.
yeah, a little close to 30%. Lema is just, it's always been kind of a weird fit here. He was important during the 2021 season when we switched to the 3-5-2. He was a huge beneficiary of that. He was pretty important that season. You got to see his creativity, how nimble he is on the ball, his agility, but the injuries have just destroyed him. And other players have been bought to supplant him and to replace him. It's a very difficult contract to get rid of. You know, as Ricky said, the ideal solution is a Saul type of solution where you send him to a team in mid-table, ideally one in the Madrid area, so he doesn't have to move too far. He can just go to the southern neighborhoods of the city and join Getafe, for example. You reach some kind of an agreement where, and these things always take time. Saul's deal didn't get done until the end of July last year. But you reach some kind of an agreement where you loan him, you pay most of his wages this coming season, and then you agree to a contract termination in 2026.
6 games in 2025. He
just doesn't play anymore. What's the market for him? Saul will play. Saul wasn't particularly good anymore, but at least he played. So what is the market for Lemar? What team is going to take a chance on him if they have aspirations of being in the top half of the table? There aren't that many. So it's a difficult situation. I think everyone assumes that Lemar is going to leave because Atletico have pretty publicly been trying to get rid of him for years. And this is even before COVID, they were trying to get rid of him. And I find it difficult to see where he is going to go. There just is no market for him. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if next season rolls around and he still has a squad number and he is on the bench, just waiting for his moment.
What do you think, St. Keith's, about Thomas Lemar's situation? And yeah, I mean, we have still a lot to talk about. So yeah, I keep it in that way.
I'll keep it brief. It's weird. I think we talked about it a few times before, where it's like I said I am a big fan of Lemar. He's from Guadeloupe, so he's from the same Caribbean region as me. So it's always nice to have a little bit of Caribbean representation. It's weird. I can't, even if I'm a big fan, I can't really justify Lemar staying. He's played barely any games this season. He's played barely any games this season before that. I know what an Achilles tear does to an athlete, especially in football. That can be a killer, and it seems to have actually killed him in terms of his career right now. I think the only another big profile would probably be Kimpembe for PSG. I don't think I've seen Kimpembe since that Achilles tear. I think he just disappeared off the face of the earth. So if you could get rid of him, you can try, I guess. I know he's on less wages now because of his last renewal, but it's tough. I wish there was a better situation for Lemar. He's such a good player, but we're just in a bad situation. We probably just need to get rid of him. So yeah.
And our last player for the midfield position is Conor Gallagher. I mean, his arrival was a very, very dramatic scene, to be honest. He was signed and then he was sent back. Classic Ricky type of player. They put him back to England, and then again he came back. He stayed in the hotel as well for a few days, and then he went back, and then again he came back, and then eventually he was revealed on that special occasion, which again we had that ceremony where all the players were there, and I think there was a really good excitement about Conor Gallagher among Atleti fans, and Conor Gallagher still, I think he can thrive under Simeone, which I think like he hasn't really like reached that potential with Simeone. I think like there's still more to see of Conor Gallagher with Atleti, which we haven't seen. I think we've only seen, I would say, like 60-70%. And again, that too, like on not on like most of the occasions as well. But what do you guys think about the Conor Gallagher right now? Like, especially the fact that he came in for the 40 million pound fee as well, and now like there's like much more competition in the midfield positions as well. So like, is this a good bailout thing for like to get more money, or like would you like keep him because again like he's a ball winner, that's for sure, and like while pressing he is actually a really good player. What do you think about the Conor Gallagher situation right now, Ricky?
You stole most of my ideas. I have the feeling that we haven't seen prime Gallagher yet, and he can explode under Simeone and become a much more important player. The fact that he is the doer of getting rid of Joao Felix forever is making me
I was gonna
feel
say that.
indebted to Conor Gallagher forever. I mean, I would keep him. He has a contract that expires in 2029. Keep the guy. Come on, extend it. And we still haven't seen the best of him in my opinion. And just going to the stats as a Chelsea player. So I'm confident that we're yet to see a better Conor Gallagher. He's a baller. He's a competitor, and I think that he's going to thrive under intense competition. The better the midfield gets, the better Conor Gallagher is going to play because he's going to thrive in that competitive atmosphere. I believe that we'll still see the best games of Conor Gallagher ahead of us.
What do you think, Jeremy? Did you get your vote stolen as well, or do you still have something more?
I like Gallagher. I'd keep him. I think moving him on would be difficult after 1 year because of the amortization and given the complexity of what was essentially that swap deal for Joao Felix. But he is responsible for Joao Felix no longer being in my club. So just for that reason alone, I do like Conor Gallagher. But in terms of the player profile and the fit here, his best position didn't really exist for most of this season. So it was kind of weird to see him playing as a left midfielder on his weaker foot. Didn't really get to see the best of him. I'm not entirely sure what Simeone thinks of him. I think Simeone appreciates him. He does have that kind of El Pit Bull, that kind of attack dog, that kind of bite and personality and charisma. It was very, it's very unusual to see an English player play in Spain. Very unusual to see an English player play abroad. So definitely giving him some grace for some of his lower moments this season, but he didn't really have that many. It was just a difficult positional fit and a difficult adaptation to that new position because he was another player signed with a different formation in mind. There was talk that Simeone was going to play a Gallagher-Koke double pivot at the start of last season, and that would have been very interesting to see. So I think it's far too soon to give up on Gallagher. I'd give him at least another year, but we'll see what the player wants and we'll see what the club wants. He does have a market in England, and next year is a World Cup year. He doesn't have a fixed place in Thomas Tuchel's England squad right now. So very interested to see how Gallagher views this situation.
But he is being called up, so it's interesting that he's going to have some presence there.
Yeah, he'll have some presence, but will it be enough? I guess we'll find out.
For sure. What do you think, St. Keys, about the Gallagher situation? Would you sell him, just like make profit, like let's say 40 or like let's say 35, but it's just very, very unlikely right now.
You could get more than, what do you mean, like 40 million plus from what he originally costed, like 80 million?
No, like I'm saying, like, would you like take back that 40, like like fine, like like he
no.
does get rid of
No.
Felix and whatever, but like we need funds to strengthen other positions. So like, would you use Gallagher as a bait for that?
You wouldn't even really be making money by selling Gallagher. That's the problem. You would just be like, when it comes to the books, you'd be getting the exact same amount in terms of that. In terms of sales, unless you get the 60 million plus offer, it's not really realistic to sell Gallagher. And I don't know who wants to put down $60 million on Gallagher this summer, despite what he could potentially be. I think Gallagher's great. I think we saw the best of him in that 3-5-2 or sort of 3-4-3 kind of situation, especially in the Athletic Club game that we did earlier the first game that we played in the early in the season, where he looked insane. He looked like, oh wow, this is what we paid good money for. Maybe we'll get to see something similar again next season. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have the three-man midfield. He does deserve at least one more season with us. I'd like to see what he can do. I think he has some really interesting traits that would be great if you unlocked him. So yeah.
Finally, our final edition, which is the strikers. And so who should we start with, Ricky? I'll ask you first. Who you wanna gonna start with? Griezmann, Alvarez, Orlot, or Correa?
I mean, in the case of Correa, I'm kind of disappointed that he wants to move on, because he's had such a long career here, and um, it's been such a perfect fit for Correa to be here. He's like the super sub uh, player of La Liga. He's added some epic goals to his highlights reel this season. I can't fully understand why he would like to move on to another position, to another team where he's been here practically all of his professional career. And the same way as I can see Jimenez trying to reignite a spark, I don't see very well the reason why Correa wants to leave, because you can be a starter in a less demanding league, of course. He could be a starter for Betis or Celta de Vigo, for the fact, or half of the La Liga teams. The thing is, do you still want to play those great Champions League matches? Do you still want to be a relevant part of the team? I'm not very sure why Correa would want to leave. I guess he's just disappointed with his role not evolving over time and not getting the minutes that he thinks he deserves against. From Simeone, and he's moving away from Atletico, I think, a little bit out of spite. And
Or maybe he got bored of Spain. He wanted to try Mexico.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure Correa will move back to Spain to live when he finishes his career, or he'll be living between Spain and Argentina.
But I think the Korea situation, I think, like you said, like super sub, definitely, I think, and then a very reliable super sub as well, because I think like wherever like we need a goal, we actually like call Korea from the bench. He's our go-to guy if like, we're struggling in the second half. But I mean, it is what it is. Again, Korea is hitting in 30s as well. We have to make our squad younger as well. So I think in that perspective, maybe it's a good situation. We get some money out of it. Korea leaves happily as well. Uh, I'm just a bit disappointed that we couldn't really give him like a nice farewell. I think in that regards, like there should be something at least. But anyway, what do you think, Jeremy, about Korea?
Yeah, I'm sad he's leaving. He's become such a fixture in our team. He plays such a mentally taxing and demanding role. Like, people don't understand that this could very well be one of the reasons why he wants to leave. He's been performing in this super sub role for the better part of a decade. He has a season where he starts 29 times and Atletico win the league. But then the next season, his minutes start to decline again. It has to be frustrating on an emotional human level. Even still, he is the player with, I think, the fifth, and Ricky can probably verify this, the fifth most appearances in our history, 400, close to 470 appearances, I'm pretty sure, which is nothing to sneeze at. He's been a very important, a record-setting type of player for us, and we're going to miss his contributions. I think these are very underrated, unheralded contributions just by their nature. You're coming off the bench and scoring goals or setting up goals. Those don't always get all the headlines and don't always get all the press. He's never been a player who commanded a huge transfer fee or who made a lot of problems in the press. He's just put his head down and gone to work for 10 years. And Diego Simeone has always backed him, always loved him. But the chance to pursue a new adventure as a fixed starter, he's signing a 5-year contract with Tigres. Like, that is security that he wasn't going to get at Atletico. So
469 games.
469.
One away from Collar, who is like a lifelong legend that I've been hearing about my entire life.
Yeah. Like we're not gonna find another Angel Correa. Like it's pretty clear you're not gonna find another one of him. And I hope the club finds another competitive 9 or another competitive 10 type of player who can replicate what we watched on Helito Duo for all these years. Not easy.
For sure, for sure. What do you think, Senki's for Angel Correa's situation? I mean, like he already left. I mean, there's no situation at the moment. But yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I'm sorry. Go on.
It's been a strange one because I think since that team, when you saw Korea, he's been slowly pushing and evolving. I think since that 2021 season, he really exploded because I think the Chow Felix, he was playing with a foot injury throughout the season, so Korea got a lot of his minutes. And then the season after that, he gets his highest ever goal tally with 12, right? He's doing something special again, and then right after that, something unfortunate happened off the pitch with his mother passing away, and you see the dip in form afterwards, and then the season right after that, he gets robbed, dip in form again. It's like some things that are happening that are just outside of your control. That I think Korea was on the up and up in terms of overall form and capabilities, and it's a shame that he never got to really reach what could have been almost a starter for us because of how things turned out to be. But I've watched Korea. It's weird to even talk about Korea leaving. He's been here 10 years. He's been here so long. He's been here as long as Oblak. It's like I never even thought of him leaving. I think the offer from AC Milan thing was something that's like an afterthought. Yeah, he's probably staying anyway. You know, so I guess it'll probably hit me maybe a month or two from now. Like I can't really process it right now. So yeah.
True, but again, let you guys think like there should be a proper farewell for Angel Correa, which I think which we really really missed out on. So, or would there be, or like he'll like straight head to Mexico? Because I think that farewell we had at Metropolitano was literally a like it was pretty. I don't think like it's the level of the farewell you give, especially the fact that like we give favor, for example, to Hector Herrera, Luis Suarez in that fashion, and then I think in last season we gave a few players some favors as well. So with Angel Correa, do you think like there should be some ceremony like we had the ceremony for the signings we made last summer? What do you guys think about the situation, about the
Like
farewell of Angel Correa?
to host a ceremony for Angel Correa.
Yeah,
I think the club there was playing their cards from the point of view that they didn't want Angel Correa to walk away for free, and there was a kind of dispute there between Correa and Correa's camp and Atletico Madrid on how to announce that goodbye, since there wasn't a deal made yet. Atletico played the strong card of not recognizing that Correa was actually leaving, reminding everybody that Correa is under a contract. And even though everybody treated the last game of the season as if it was Correa's farewell, that hasn't happened. And I think that it was kind of clumsy on both sides because Correa was kind of pushing the limits of what he can do while being under contract. He's still under contract for an entire season. So it's kind of weird. It's like if Javi Galan did that. And Javi Galan said that he was going to Celta Vigo or whatever team it was, just out of the blue. So it was a weird move by Angel Correa. It was a weird move from Atletico to deny that when they've been so celebrating about everything that has had to do with Correa. And I want to mention something that St. Keith said before about Angel Correa. He's technically been on the team longer than Oblak because he arrived a season earlier,
Hmm.
and it was only after he had been a couple of weeks here that they recognized that he had a problem in his heart. And when he was just signed, he got his heart operation in Madrid while being an Atletico player, and he stayed on the squad for an entire season, just recovering from the heart operation and starting to train. So it was like a reverse Kun Agüero kind of situation where the heart operation ended his career. Um, Correa's heart operation kind of kicked it off. So it was getting the kind of health care that maybe he wasn't that wasn't available for him before signing for Atletico Madrid. And Atletico Madrid being like an integral part of his entire career, both as a player and almost as a person. He's grown into a man from being basically a kid
Hmm.
um, in as an Atletico Madrid player. So yeah, it's so sad. Um, it was so avoidable to have the weird send off that he had, or to make to celebrate in a different way. And I think that Atletico Madrid and Correa, they both have to agree to make it better and make it in a different way. Definitely, it's not going to be with Correa playing on the pitch, from what we hear and from the reasons that you're giving, the long term contract that he's getting elsewhere that he isn't getting here.
Moving on to our next player, I think like this player like was on the verge of leaving Atleti as well, and for some reason we renewed his contract. Like I thought like he's gone to MLS, and like he's very happy in US actually. Like we just saw him playing basketball in US. So Griezmann, let's just talk about Griezmann for a while. Uh, I mean like I don't know what to say to be honest, like about Griezmann at the moment. I mean, like I'm really happy that like we had a player like Griezmann in our club from 2015, 16, and 17, where he literally exploded with Atletico Madrid. Like we had one of those best players in the world at that moment. And then he made that weird move to Barcelona, and then he came back, and then again, when he came back again, that season was very slow. He has some injuries issues as well, and then the next season again he exploded with this. And this season, until I would say Feb or Jan, I think that he was still going pretty good with Atletico Madrid, and something happened, and like there was literally a big drop in his form. And now, as like the season ended, people were saying like he might leave to MLS, but he renewed his contract for one more year, and maybe like he wants to give it a shot of another year, maybe winning the La Liga, which he hasn't achieved. Maybe
2
2 year
years.
contract.
Yes,
Really?
sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
I thought it's one.
Yes.
wages are split over
2027.
He
2 seasons.
extended it
I
one
thought,
extra year. He's
thought
got
it's
2 years
one.
left on his contract.
Oh,
So I
okay.
mean,
Damn. Okay.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Welcome to Wrexham documentary. I can imagine Griezmann walking around with a TV crew, just planning this documentary that he wants to start in about his last days at Atleti, the last dance as an Atleti player, winning the Champions League or whatever weird, winning a league, which he hasn't been able to do, even though he's played on two teams that have won the league right after he left consecutively. I can see Griezmann just wants to have a perfect ending to his story, and he can't live with the idea that he can't have that perfect ending, or that last hurrah is just not in the cards for him. And right now he's playing the long game of trying to survive as an Atleti player long enough to see those glory days and to be able to start in that Disney Plus documentary that's pending a launch date and a title. He really played well until December, and he progressively dipped. And I think it's just the age showing. And if he can realize that he's not at the center stage anymore, and he has to um, resign to having a role like the one Koke has, that he has accepted perfectly well, he can still be a very valuable player and a very useful player. But just his dip in performance has been almost embarrassing at the end of the league, and during the Club World Cup, we were expecting him to just try to make a comeback in a certain way. That last goal can anticipate a sort of a comeback. Um, Griezmann has already played his 10 best games as an Atleti player, and he's played them kind of a long time ago. So he can't expect to be prime Griezmann anymore because those days are long gone. Now he has to just settle with being a good squad player and contributing to a team that is going to be loaded in the part of the pitch where he plays, and he can contribute to um, being part of that better Atletico that we hope to see the next season.
What do you think, Jeremy? Can you make Griezmann cut his hair or not?
Yeah, he should cut his hair. It's embarrassing. Should. Griezmann always plays better with short hair. What are we doing here? And when he's admitted this in interviews before, when he grows
What
out
color?
the hair,
What color?
We're
you know,
going
he
blue
was
this
really
time.
good when he had the short pink hair. I liked that
Perfect.
Griezmann. That was only a
No,
couple years
man,
ago,
no.
but it was short. And he said in interviews before, when his hair is long or like unkempt or scruffy, it means he's stressed. Ruben Aria said on his show like a week or so ago that Griezmann was going through some kind of difficult personal situation. I don't know if it was related to the birth of his son a couple of weeks ago, but you know, maybe that was weighing on him. It seems like it likely that it was weighing on him. But from a playing perspective, I am annoyed that Atletico renewed him. I would not have renewed his contract. And Griezmann does have a certain stature and a status at the club, despite that exit to Barcelona that turned some fans permanently against him, and they're not coming back to support him. And I get it. That's fine. I'm not going to convince them otherwise. That's all good. We have to normalize having beef with one another. But from a playing perspective, Griezmann's not at the level anymore. And I know Simeone loves him. And I know he's popular in the dressing room. I know he's a gregarious, charismatic guy. He's a funny guy. He keeps it lighthearted. But my God, man, watching his level from like the end of February on, it's just been desperate. When he scored against Botafogo, it was his first goal, I think, in 19 games. And it was a tap in at the back post because Julian Alvarez did all the work for him. And we can't carry a 34-year-old Griezmann as a passenger in this team. Like, I feel very strongly about that. And it's not a matter of, you know, disliking Griezmann for what he did, leaving for a direct rival several years ago. That's in the past. From a playing perspective, he's even as a squad player, I have some questions. It's the salary is no longer an issue because of this 2-year renewal, but whereas Koke took to that role very quickly and very easily, Griezmann has had a more difficult transition to that role, and it partially because the perfect partner for Alvarez does not exist in this team right now, and we're going to talk about him in a moment, but the reason Simeone keeps starting Griezmann goes beyond, you know, I love Griezmann the person and Griezmann the player. It's the type of player he sees Alvarez, the type of role he sees Alvarez fulfilling. He believes Griezmann is the best foil for Alvarez in this team right now. So it is up to the club to see if they can change Cholo's mind.
Well, I
I
know
mean,
should change.
yeah, sorry, go on, Ricky, it's okay.
No, I mean, Baena is the natural fit to move on from Griezmann as from the playing perspective. Bad news for Sorloth, by the way.
I thought it was Julian Alvarez actually the perfect replacement for Griezmann. But but okay, I mean like talking about Griezmann, I think some fans are like really frustrated at him, and I mean like rightfully so. But I mean like all have their own opinions. That Barcelona move definitely like left a mark on the career of him at Atletico Madrid. But I think what do you think about the Griezmann situation at the moment? Would you keep him, or would you like pack your bags, go to US, or actually like remain to US? Since we were there in the Club World Cup.
It's no longer up to me because I think the club has made a decision. But if it was up to me, I would sell him because Griezmann is a weird player that I think is really, really quality, and I think even with his really awful form for the past set of months, I think you could recover some level of him for the next year. Not for 2 years, but for at least for 1 year, especially if he cuts his hair. I think it's not a problem of physicality so much as it is mental, we call it, as you said, the mental block. When he has his hair long, he's stressed about certain things and whatever. It's like the Samson situation, reverse Samson situation, where you're supposed to have your hair short in this situation, but Griezmann is he's the exact type of player I'm most scared about in terms of the squad, not because of his ability, but because of how Simeone works. Simeone has certain players that he likes, right? And sometimes they override his typically more meritocratic approach to football. And I think Griezmann is one of those players that can abuse that system a little bit, and it can cause Atletico to suffer in terms of results a lot as a situation. And I think 22-23 season kind of reminds me of that, where he just came in. Oh, no, is it 21-22? My bad. 21-22 season where he just came in after we won the league, and he was mostly ineffective throughout the season. He had his Champions League goals. He had some goals in the league. He had like three or something goals. He got the first injury that he's ever had at Atletico, which was, I think, probably a mental block as well for him. But that was a season that basically we had to give up because Griezmann came back, and we just couldn't really compete in anything. And we just kept playing Griezmann throughout that season, and I feel like I'm a little scared of this next season coming up because I feel like there's going to be a potential repeat of that, where we're renewing and we're recovering in a lot of different areas, and yet I see a potential where Griezmann kind of holds us back in a way that I don't really want to see. Somebody for years I've admired and given me many good moments, especially even this year with like the Sevilla game where he just, you know, did something special for us again. So
I think like as long as it doesn't start, I think like it works perfectly fine. But I think like we have like find a perfect replacement for Angel Correa, and I think like 10-20 minutes from Griezmann wouldn't really hurt anyone, to be honest. But anyway, moving on to the next play, we'll talk about big number 9 Atleti had this season. The 40 million signing from Villarreal. Again, I mean, like which was again very dramatic way as well. The way he came, because we almost signed Duvbek, and then the Duvbek situation didn't pan out, and then we went on for another option, which was Alexander Sorloth. And boy, this guy could have won Pichichi in my eyes. The way, like the number of chances he has missed in La Liga this year, easily he would have easily reached about like 30 goals for me. I mean, like we talked about the 4 goals against Real Sociedad. He could have had hat tricks against, for example, Real Betis or against Espanyol, and the number of
Rayo.
chances. Rayo as well, yeah. Osasuna, which is pretty recent as well. Not to mention the Club World Cup. I mean, I don't really have like fresh memories literally right now from Seattle and Botafogo and the PSG game as well. But I mean, the PSG one was like fuck. Like, how can you miss that? But anyway, for Sorloth again, this is the guy again is gonna reach. Is gonna. I think like he's about like gonna like 30 this year, right? Should he be our main number 9, or like if a good offer comes, like would you like let him leave to another club? What do you guys think about the Sorloth thing? Again, starting off with Ricky.
I would not consider selling him. I do not consider he's a starting number 9. Both things are true. He's just he's just a decent player. Um, from which we're probably asking for more than he's equipped to deliver. He's had this kind of disconnect throughout his career. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a 40 million player. He would be an 80 million player. Um, he's capable of scoring 2, 3, 4 consecutive goals against weaker sides, and he's able to miss the big shots on the big nights. So
hey,
he's
don't
not.
forget Barcelona.
He loves scoring against them. For
Yeah, I
whatever
mean,
reason.
and you have
The
to.
only big team
I
scored
mean,
it.
I mean, so like what?
I think he can grow on you. I think that Sorloth's biggest fan is Sorloth. He thinks he's a better player than he actually is. That's okay. That happens to many players. They tend to be their biggest fans, but it's not aligned with reality. The playing time that he desires with the consistent performances that he delivers. So I think he's an excellent sub. I'm not very sure. Well, I'm pretty positive he won't accept the role of being a sub for more than one season. I'm sure that if we play him in the same way we've played him this season, which is probably what's going to happen now that Baena has landed, I would be positively surprised if Atleti made like a big splash in the market and brought a Gyökeres kind of player, or something that was really an upgrade from Sorloth. I can't see another player coming. I think they're going to leave Carlos Martinez a wild card on the squad if Correa moves on, and just do with that. And maybe if Carlos Martin has no playing time, look for an exit in December and try to figure out what to do in the forward position in the winter transfer window. um the striker part of the squad is the one that is more open to speculation, because I think that Baena is going to be filling in for Griezmann. Griezmann is going to be a substitute for Baena. Julian Alvarez is going to get all of the playing time in the world, and it's just going to be a matter of Sorloth finding some time as a substitute for the last 30 minutes in the front, maybe playing at the same time as Baena and Griezmann. For in some cases, substituting one of them. In other cases, that's the way I see the season playing out. Understanding a little bit how Simeone relies on what the type of players that he likes, and he definitely does not like Sarloth that much, or he would play more. So that's a reality of things.
What do you think? What do you think, Jeremy? What's gonna happen with the Sorloth situation? And like again, I think we've talked about this a lot, but like again, just to reflect on it.
They're going to keep him. I don't necessarily think that they should. I would not have even really purchased Sirloth last summer, but it was strategic because I think it did help in a way pave the way for the player Atletico really wanted, Alex Baena. So there are, I think, two very practical reasons why Atletico are not going to sell Sirloth this summer. One of them is financial. There was a clause in which Villarreal and Atletico last summer agreed that if Sirloth were to be sold in the first 2 years of his Atletico stay, Villarreal were entitled to a 20% sell-on clause. So Atletico would have to sell Sirloth for a pretty hefty fee to break even on him because Villarreal are entitled to that sell-on clause. That makes it very unappealing for Atletico to sell him. The second reason is who on the market is going to guarantee what Sirloth brought you this year, largely in a substitute role, because he's not quite a forward to Simeone's liking. Even still, he scored 20 goals in the league. Are you going to spend 80 million on Victor Gilchrist to find out that he can't score 20 goals? That would be a very tough pill for the club to swallow. Not really sure what's going on with Gilchrist. Kind of speaking of that, I don't know. It seems like there's an issue with his agent. There's an issue with Sporting. It doesn't seem like there's very much active interest in him at the moment, which is something to keep an eye on for the rest of the window. But I think those are the two very practical financial and sporting reasons why Atletico won't move on from Sirloth. And I think he will continue to produce. You just can't expect that much of him. It's a little bit, this may be a bit dramatic to compare him to Lenglet, but it's kind of a similar scenario in that you're asking Clement Lenglet as a starter to perform at a level he's not capable of performing at. You're asking Alexander Sirloth to be a 9 in the style of Diego Costa or Radamel Falcao, and he's not even close to those guys. That's why Simeone doesn't like him. He's not complete enough. Having Alex Baena around will help everybody, but it could really help Sirloth too. So for that reason, it is probably fine that he stays in the squad. He's not the 9 I would prefer, but he's the 9 we have, and I support him nonetheless.
Anyway, I mean, like again, we've talked about this a lot. Actually, I mean, like again, like we talked about him as like he's not our leading top scorer for last season, but he is for some reason. Same case. What do you think about him? Like still, like we talked about him like as he should be or not our main number 9. What do you think about sort of the situation? Would you think like he can be a perfect replacement for Angel Correa as a super sub coming on in the second half and scoring goals for us?
I think he can be that. I think for sure. I think we've seen it this season. I think, given what we are expecting from our squad in terms of crossing and these other things, it's a shame that he can't be what I want him to be in terms of. I don't want him to be Costa and these other things, but I at least want some aerial supremacy where if you could score headers, I don't think we'd have as much complaints. He scored like 3 headers this season. You know what I mean? Like if he scored that hat trick of headers against Rayo, we'd be having a very different conversation about Solot right now. But that's not what's happening. Um, we do need a starting striker. I don't know how we're financing that, considering we still have to buy centre backs. Um, so that will be an interesting deal. Maybe that's a loan plus obligation for somebody. Um, the reality is Solat is still a capable player, but I have also seen Simeone with his hand held to the sky, like asking for help when Solat misses. So I don't know what to say about Solat that I haven't already said. Uh, I he's a funny guy. I like him. I keep him. Yes.
Moving on to our next, I think the
By the
last
way,
one.
Dobic, 32 matches, 12 goals. I had to say it, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You prefer
Yeah, I'm glad
Roma.
we didn't get stuck
Enjoy
with
your
him
Roma,
either.
man.
Because Roma had the more ambitious project. That's what his
Yeah.
agent said. Yeah.
It feels weird for you to talk about Roma because I also follow Roma. And it's just like, oh, okay.
I mean, good for us actually. Good for us. At the end, like we got the last laugh. Good for us. But yeah, moving on to our next player. Actually, he's been our player of the season, the signing of the season, and I think like we got him for around like 70 plus the 20 on add-ons. I think which was now it feels like a very good deal we got for Julian Alvarez. And again, like I think I see Julian Alvarez as the guy to like lead us to those. If we have like win those trophies, I think Julian Alvarez is the guy like who can lead us to the trophies. But the question is like, can we make a really good team around him? That's the big question. And this season, like I said, like we have a left back in Matteo Ruggeri, and then Johnny Cardoso is there, and then Alex Baena is there as well. So, are we gonna have a really good team around Julian Alvarez, and we can actually like compete for major trophies this season? And also talking about last season, Julian Alvarez, I think at the start of the season, many players, not players, many fans were like, like maybe this can another like big money signing gone wrong. For example, Thomas Lemar or Joao Felix, because Julian Alvarez like wasn't literally like clicking with the team, and then that came the first goal against Valencia, I guess, right, where Conor Gallagher, Julian Alvarez scored. And then from there on, like I think like it was just uphill from there, and I can't really like forget like thank the that free kick against Real Betis, and especially that goal against Real Madrid as well from the edge of the box. So talking about Julian Alvarez, what do you think, Ricky?
I can imagine Julian Alvarez this summer playing Cuba Gooding Jr. and Carlos Bucero playing Tom Cruise, and Julian Alvarez just show me the money and asking for the signings and bring the players, or I'm out of here. And he just needs the quality around him. He needs the players to be up to his level, and he's deserved. He's come here. He's proven that he can be that top quality player that I really did not think he could play at that level. I'm the first one to be surprised about Julian Alvarez being the real deal. I just thought he was going to be a very good player. I didn't think he was going to take that step and become such a relevant player. He's now one of the big La Liga assets. La Liga is losing a lot of talent to other big leagues. I think he's one of the most important players in La Liga, and he just needs those other signings to be at the same level as he's brought to the table. He needs not only Baena, Cardoso, and Ruggeri to be on the team. He needs the team to go to the market and bring two central defenders, to bring eventually another striker, to bring someone on the wings to play a more offensive game and be on the attacking side. Julian Alvarez has sparked change in Atlético Madrid for the first time in I don't know how many seasons. So that's a promising thing that Julian Alvarez is pointing to the promised land, and there finally seems to be some type of game plan here.
What do you think, Jeremy? Like, who should be the partner of Julian Alvarez for this season?
It's a great question because I'm not really sure I know the answer to it, and I don't want to cop out. So let me see if I can work my way there. Alvarez is one of the most complete strikers in world football. He does literally everything. He except like win headers at an elite level. He does absolutely everything else, and he's only 25 years old. He chose to come here in the prime of his career. He had everything he could have wanted at Manchester City, but he chose to come here and lead this new project. And Atletico are not really a club that does projects. Atletico are a club that, right, let's just get through this summer. Let's take it year by year. Let's see if Simeone can get us to third place, and then we'll just do it all again next year. It's not, this club has never been run in a sustainable manner, especially since the Heel family took it over, which we've talked about on our show. So Alvarez can do everything himself, but it is true that he needs a good, reliable foil. And Simeone has never really enjoyed playing a one-striker system. The only big game that I can remember him doing it in was the Madrid derby at the Metropolitano, the first one in 2017 when he started Griezmann as a 9, and Griezmann was hauled off on 75 minutes without having had any effect. So I think he does need a partner, but I do believe Simeone sees Alvarez as a 9. He doesn't see him as Griezmann's replacement. He sees Baena as Griezmann's replacement. He sees Alvarez as his 9, which, like we talked about, is one of the reasons why he doesn't enjoy playing Sturlock next to him. He said as much after the PSG game at the Club World Cup. He said, we started Alvarez as the 9. You find a conflicting opinion. I don't care. Pretty clearly he sees Alvarez as his center forward. So the type of player you put him with, I don't think we're in for Darwin Nunez, but I love Darwin. I think he'd be a very good fit at Atletico. He just needs to get out of Liverpool. Yeah, I love Darwin. He'd be such a great fit here. Like just a cannon, just an athletic, explosive. He's got that kind of Morata illness where he misses chances. But yeah, every good striker.
I mean, it's like
he's got that same Morata illness. But the
I mean,
next tier of
then Ricky
striker,
would be like, like we have Solot in the other side, and then we have David Nunes on the other side. Where do we go?
with the Norwegian Morata.
Um,
Like the next tier up, though, those guys cost you 100 million, and Atletico aren't going to pay that. So you're either looking at a project, someone from another European club, or you're looking to get someone from South America who can maybe develop, which isn't really going to meet Alvarez's timeline if he wants to win and win soon. And it doesn't really meet the club's timeline if they want to win and win soon, so that Gil and Tedesco can sell and get out of here finally. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think that's going to be left to later in the summer. What I do know about Alvarez, though, is that, man, he's a beast. He's a competitive freak. He's an athletic freak. He played all but 3 games out of 80 over the last year, which is incredible. He takes great care of himself, and he's the present and the future at Atletico Madrid. He is the fulcrum around which this project is being built. We're lucky to have him. I love watching him.
He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
By all accounts, he's a great dude.
He's not the Rodri de Paul kind of antics. Any manner.
Yeah, he's humble. He just gets down to business. He's about to become a father for the first time. Good for him. Kudos. And yeah, I hope to see him wearing the red and white shirt for many, many years.
Not to forget good hair as well.
Yeah, great hair. Man, he's good looking. He's got it all.
There you go. Sid Kicks closing on in this one.
There's not a lot I could say that the other two haven't already said on Alvarez. He's been looking like a potential best in class in terms of his year for some time now. When he was in River Plate, I watched a random game of him because of one of my friends is a River Plate fan. He said like, "Oh, you have to watch him." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then he scored 6 goals, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He's just one of those guys. He's just one of those. Like he could be a real deal, like what Falcao was in River Plate himself. So you see what Alvarez could have been in River Plate, and then what you actually see now is better than he ever was in City. He's better than he could have been, and yet I still think there's more to come, despite the fact that he's scoring these insane goals, like that free kick he scored against Betis, so that goal he scored against Real Madrid at the edge of the box. He has these moments where he just has a flash of brilliance, and he also has the basic stuff as well. So there's not a lot to complain about with Alvarez. In terms of the commenter Darwin, I knew Darwin wasn't gonna do well in Liverpool. That was one of those signings where I was just like, in theory, it makes sense, but I knew it wouldn't work because how Liverpool work is not they're not just a counter-attack team. They have a lot of intricacies that make sense for Klopp. But Klopp during that period of time was just like, I think Michael Edwards had left Liverpool. He was just signing players like Minamino didn't work out during that time. That's a Klopp signing. Like Nunes, there's a ton of Klopp signings that you just look back and like, yeah, that you should have just went to another club. Hopefully he can come to here. I think he's a perfect fit for us. I think when you look at how Morata got his best ever goal tally in Atletico last season, and had he not managed to just score like 2 goals throughout that last 6 month period, he would have actually probably he could have reached the target of like 18 goals in the league. But he was great last season, Morata. Not a great end, but great last season. And I think if you can do that with Morata, knowing that Morata has these weird tendencies, you can do a lot with Darwin Nunes as well.
So there you go, guys. I mean, like, finally, we've ended this session. I mean, it's a very, very long session. It went on, went on, and went on. I think this is definitely one of the longest videos we had on this channel. And thank you so much, Ricky and Jeremy, for joining us. And hopefully, we can have more of these videos collaborating with each other, and hopefully a shorter one as well. But for sure, for sure. But then you guys find the link for these guys in the description channel for Ricky and Jeremy and their channel as well, the Atleti podcast. So like make sure you follow them as well. And I mean, like, it's a long, long video, so like please be patient. I think it's gonna be worth it. And yeah, please ignore my breaking of the internet as well in between. We'll try to cut that out as well as long as we can. But yeah, until then, all I can say is, like, hopefully we can get the best of the team for this season. And until then, Opa Atleti. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Ciao.